Welcome back to the Reidel Law Firm YouTube channel. Today I want to chat about what happens when franchisors collapse. This has been a hot topic in 2024. Coming into 25, we hope this is less common of a topic. But I want to give a little bit more insights into what happens for franchisees, what happens to the system itself, what happens to the intellectual property. And there's a lot of different answers in regards to the path that a failing franchise concept or system may take. Depends on a lot of different things, at the time and place there that I can't answer. But I'm going to give you some general oversights. So first, let's chat about what is a collapsing franchisor, right? What does that mean? What is this going to bankruptcy or whatnot? And yes, it's all of the above. It could be a franchisor declaring bankruptcy. It could be a franchisor that is absentee. That's kind of missing in action, right? Isn't giving you the support there, or is unable to fund expansion or fund the right initiatives to continue growing the brand. That would be an example, I think, of maybe a franchisor pre-collapse, getting to that next level. It's a franchisor that's maybe being sued and has an existential crisis that is right in its face, right? Maybe they're going to make it, maybe not. So it's all of those. I don't want to narrow it down to just a bankruptcy, because there's a lot of things that happen way before bankruptcy that gives you the writing on the wall. That explains, what likely will happen or what is happening right then and there. So franchisors, when they're collapsing, what you're going to start seeing is they're going to start pulling back on advertising, on growth initiatives. They are going to have trouble servicing their debt. All of this may not be readily apparent to you as a franchisee who's already in the system, because that kind of stuff you're not going to interact with typically every day. But if you're reviewing the FDD, you're going to see that they're going to have high debt servicing costs. You're going to see revenues falling. You're going to see that their advertising expenses are shrinking. Maybe they're stop paying even commissions for franchise sales, for the sales team and sales organizations. Things like that. Now, when they're in this phase, there is usually some grumbling, but it's very easy for the franchisor to use the franchise agreement to smooth over complaints, because a lot of what they're cutting is very likely discretionary, which means the franchisor can implement it or eliminate it at their discretion in their say 100%. Let's talk about some examples of this. So if the franchisor runs a call center maybe, or they run some type of maybe a rebate program for sales of certain products or goods or services or something with partnerships, or the franchisor helps you as a franchisee, helps organize and run YouTube ads maybe, or Google ads, things like that. And one day these programs start getting cut. That was the example with Anchor Tiny Homes. And franchisees had very little recourse when those programs were starting to get cut, because they were discretionary. When you look in your franchise agreement or in any franchise agreement, you're going to see that a lot of what the franchisor promises you is very likely discretionary, right? Their only obligations typically are going to be to license you the intellectual property, the logo, the brand, to train you on the concept, and to lend you the operations manual. Besides that, very little is obligated legally of the franchisor to you or to a franchisee. So even when you start seeing these programs get cut and not being replaced by anything very good, or anything that really propels the brand forward, that should be a warning sign. There's probably very little recourse you will have, unfortunately, as a franchisee. But what you should be preparing for is the franchisor going to the next level of collapse, right? Where now they're starting to remove staff. Now they're not being able to make payroll reliably, and they're going to start removing staff. So the first staff, usually frontline, these are going to be folks that are developing those ads, writing those ads, or who communicate with the franchisees. Those are usually the ones that go first. Franchise sales positions and development positions. So representatives, things like that. If they're on staff, those probably will be cut. You start seeing a reduction in staff and franchisor rather communications. That's going to be another red flag. That's the next level. That's because now their debt servicing is getting a bit out of control. Now they're unable to fund the ideal operational size, right? So having to cut back and really shrink their footprint. During this phase, you may also start seeing unit closures in regards to franchise or corporate owned franchisor or corporate owned or affiliate units. Those will start closing. We saw a lot of that in 2024. A lot of the big franchisors just started closing any unproductive franchisor owned units. And a lot of the reason behind that was the lease cost, right? The cost for renting the space and the lease got out of control. And those were some of the big items on the balance sheet that they had to eliminate. So that's the next phase of watching a collapse. The last phase is going to be that they either just shut down, disappear, or maybe more likely if they have high debts is they're going to have to file bankruptcy, right? So in that, you're going to get notice as a franchisee at some point probably that operations are shutting down at the corporate level. Or you'll see a filing or in the news or something, or other franchisees will notify you probably. There might not be a corporate notice, but someone will find out and spread it around that the franchisor declared bankruptcy, right? And depending on the type of bankruptcy, it's probably not a liquidation. It'll be probably a reorganization, which means they're going to try to consolidate their debts and get on a payment plan that's sustainable. So it doesn't mean that the brand is gone just yet, but it's on its last legs, right? These are some serious things. So that's what happens when franchisors collapse. That's kind of the progression that you're going to see, and the flags, the warning signs that you should look for, the red flags. Now, what should you do while this is happening? That's probably a big question, right? First thing I think you should do is read your franchise agreement to see what recourse you may have, to see what obligations the franchisor has to you, and what things might be cut that you don't have recourse to control. And really getting some insights into the franchisor-franchisee relationship that you're in and what the consequences may be if the brand starts sinking. Second step is I would start taking copies or getting versions of anything that the franchisor has given you or has allowed you access to that's discretionary. For example, last year, Anchor Tiny Homes collapsed. I did a video on that. And we had clients involved in it. Unfortunately, we were involved in some, counsel before the actual bankruptcy filing and walking them through what was important, what we got to watch out for, and things that we need to actually, entrench in and be ready for. And Anchor Tiny Homes had run the ads program, the digital online marketing ads program for their franchisees. I believe the franchisees paid a portion of it, but I guess some of that was already run by the franchisor or staffing or something. And so what was scary is that the franchisees didn't have access to those ads. So if and when the franchisor disappears or can't pay their people, those ads stop running. And your phone as a franchisee stops ringing. And you stop getting hits and emails to your unit, to your location. So that was the first thing we got to focus on. Hey, let's get copies of these ads. Let's be ready and create a Google Ads account so that you can be ready to flip the switch if the franchisor goes dark on their ads. We need to be able to get those on immediately and continue their cash flow and revenue stream. So focus on those things that that are discretionary, the franchisor may eliminate, but that you can take immediate steps to reintroduce locally, right? Digital marketing ads, maybe call center, or having someone answer the phone locally, things like that. It really depends on your system and what exactly you're looking at, what you're doing. But those are things you need to think of and things that you need to prepare for. So, but the next level beyond that is once the franchisor gets to a point of missing action or filing a bankruptcy, there's very little that you can do as a franchisee but you can definitely continue operating your business. Depending on what happens in the bankruptcy, either someone might buy the business, the franchisor business, out of bankruptcy and would assume the responsibilities of the franchisor in the franchise agreement. So you would have a new boss, basically, that would run and fund the system. If that's not the case, if it's just an MIA, they're missing in action and stop doing anything, then the same result, right? Just continue operating your business. They're probably not going to come and enforce the franchise agreement. If they do, call me, we'll talk it out and we'll figure out a way to coexist. But I tell my franchisee clients, there's no reason to close just because the franchisor is out of business, right? Maybe we don't have to make royalty payments depending on the circumstances. But frankly, you have a right to use that brand and that concept under the franchise agreement. And I tell my clients, continue using it until someone tells you otherwise. And when that happens, call me and we're going to work it out. Because there's no reason to lose everything just because of someone else's bad decisions. Now, sometimes that's assuming that you want to continue operating your business. Sometimes the franchisees don't because they're in also a hard financial situation. And in that case, usually we will counsel them, hey, it should be safe to close down and walk away from this without recourse from the franchisor because they don't exist, right? They either don't exist or they're on the outs themselves anyways. So just some insights on that. If you got specific questions, always reach out to us. We can help you. But I just want to give a little clarity around franchise collapses or franchise bankruptcies and what happens. They're not fun to deal with, but they happen. And we can definitely help make sure that your business transition is smooth, whichever direction that is, continue operating or not. So reach out, Reidel Law Firm. We love to chat with you and help you out with that transition. Until next time.